What else?
Someone who makes a change.
So who we're talking about? Someone who makes a change. A big change. Just say it. It's alright if you're wrong. The best human beings I've ever lived with are the prophets. I talk about them all the time. I think some people in the room have attended classes I've done on the prophets, but today's not about the prophets. So what's number two? Number two, who comes after the prophets? So Allah decides, not us, but Allah decided after the prophets. So I chose the best of all hearts and souls, and I put them together in that generation after the Prophet ﷺ. They are the companions, the best of all generations. It's undisputed. Okay? After that, there's a hadith that says the tabi'in, the generations after the Prophet. It makes sense, like they're closer to him. If your teacher was a prophet, or if your teacher was a student of the Prophet, it makes sense. Afterwards, it's kind of free-for-all in a sense. Like the best person, the best people of the generation after those three are definitely amazing people. But also, do we have proof that amazing people today are still amazing at that level, or not really? Or does so the ayahs and hadiths, if you put them together, does it indicate that like after those generations, like after the companions and so on, is it because like everybody's evil, everyone's going to hell? Or even the good people, but they're like bad compared to the Prophet? For all some ayahs and hadiths that come to mind, that we have any proof that says that like, because or else we want to be positive, right? If like, is there a reason to be hopeful that if you do really good in our lifetimes now, you're like up there, or you kind of like level 15, like, you know? Give me something, give me an ayah or hadith. Because it's not just art, because it's not something you can just think about, like, you can't make up this stuff. Did Allah or the Prophet tell us anything about like we're living 1,400 years after the Prophet? Is there a reason to be hopeful that we can be people of substance, or not really?
One hadith that comes to mind was where he's...
But there's no microphone, you gotta be loud so others can hear you.
One hadith that comes to mind was, I forget the exact, but it was something
right.
about the Prophet ﷺ talking about how his real brothers were those who believe in him without seeing him.
Excellent. I didn't have that on my list, so that's a famous hadith, 100%. That's the end of it. So the day, like when the judgment comes, the people, the Muslims at that time, they're like the best. So them and the companions are the best. Well, that's not us. Or so far, I mean, as of right now, we're not at that end of the major signs. We're not there. So is there hope for us? Of course, the answer is yes, but I want you to think with me. We have evidence that indicates that, like, if we do, like, we definitely go through a lot of trials and tribulations here, abroad, spiritual issues, mental, intellectual issues, cultural, social, financial, economic, political issues. If we try our best to navigate these and we do a good job, is that a big deal, or it's like you look at human history, it's like are we just footprints in history? Like, you guys understand the question? What comes to mind? It's okay if you don't know.
I know the ayah where it's like, وَالصِّدِّقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ.
Okay.
So is it that?
So the translate. So the
The truthful, the shuhada.
no one's recording? So the
Like the truthful, shuhada, like, isn't the martyrs?
Martyrs.
Was
Righteous. Okay, how does that touch my question?
because we're talking about the Midnight Superior. I forgot what the ayah that says previously, but it talks about how those people, like those are like a category of people.
You're saying that like we have prophets and so on, but also these three categories are not bound on time. Like you could be a martyr in the 21st century, you could be a martyr 1,000 years ago. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
So Siddiqeen, Shuhada, Salihin, these are people of every time. It's good. Isn't directly that's but I agree. I see what you're saying, and that's correct. There's people in every generation that will fall into these categories. So they come basically right after the prophets, martyrs, but you can be a martyr anytime. That's good. But also, inshallah, we're Siddiqeen and Salihin, probably not martyrs. I mean, it's not impossible, but not likely if you're in America, but it's not impossible. At least one person we talk about is actually a martyr in America, but you guys can guess who that is. But what else? That's interesting. You guys all mentioned good answers. It's not the ayahs and hadiths that I have, which is okay. We're like a think tank as a group, inshallah. Should I tell you guys? I have a couple of things. One, there's a hadith, Abu Hurairah reports, the messenger of Allah sallallahu said, this knowledge will be carried by the trustworthy of every successive generation. Keyword, every generation. يحمل على هذا العلم من كل خلف عدوله ينفون عنه تحريفا. They're going to respond to the extremists. They're going to fix people's wrong interpretations. They're going to educate the ignorant, etc., etc. The knowledge of the Prophet and the Prophets, basically, that's what they have. Their inheritance is, their legacy is knowledge. He's saying that every generation will be people that will be people of knowledge. They will understand, they will memorize it, learn it, understand it, apply it, teach it, and therefore we have an unbroken chain back to the Prophet. So that's one. I know it's not a famous hadith, but and if you want to look into it, it's in Tabari and it's in Imam Ahmad's. I'll send you guys, it's authentic by Imam Ahmad. I can always send you guys references. There's another one. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, لا تزال طائفة من أمتي على الدين ظاهرين. There will always be a group of my ummah upon the deen, upon truth. They're righteous, they're upright, they're strong, they're proud. They're not going to the clubs. If they do, they ask Allah for forgiveness and repentance, because as long as you're alive, Allah hasn't given up on you, you shouldn't give up on yourself. It's not that they can't at any point commit sins, but they're definitely not the group of people that are clubbing or partying or drinking or hooking up, even if everyone else is doing that. FOMO doesn't affect them the way it does, or it does affect them. They overcome it, and they fight against it, and they resist it, and they're not going to just go with the flow, etc., etc. They don't care how pretty she is or how rich he is. They're going to fight against those desires and so on. They're just not interested because they're too focused on their vision, on their mission, on their goals. But there's a core group. Okay, keywords from these two. From everything we said, keywords, every generation. Are we all good? Everyone's, all right, so that's the first point. Keywords, every generation. There'll be at least a group. It's okay if they're the minority. It seems to indicate clearly, we have another hadith that's also famous. Some of these were not as famous, about ghurabat. I'm sure you guys talk about this. MSAs talk about this all the time, that the Prophet tells us that, if you're going to like follow the deen correctly, you'll be in the minority. You'll be seen as weird by a lot of people, right? And he says glad tidings to the ghurabat. But anyways, let's focus on the positive. We're going to be hopeful and optimistic today. Talk about some amazing people. Keyword, every generation. That includes millennials, it's my generation, includes Gen Z, your generation, every generation. And it's also global. Prophet I'm saying from every generation of people, and his message went to all corners of the world. So it's every generation, but for the most part, we're going to focus on America in this talk, this particular talk. But that means there are good people, but there will be, and there always have been good people in Pakistan and India, in Egypt and Nigeria, in Syria, and so on and so forth. Make sense? Indonesia? Okay. We're focusing on America. And in modern times, last few hundred years. Who knows the significance of the year 1619? 1619. 400 and few years ago. 404 years ago. Who was there? Who was at the third khutbah today at Oasis? At least a couple of you? Okay, I started by saying 500 years is long enough. 400 years is long enough, yes? And I've said it on multiple other, if you see my Instagram or YouTube posts, I've said it at a number of different universities, a number of different protests. So 400 years refers to 1619. That's kind of a hint. No? I said 400 years is long enough. 400 years of slavery and post-slavery. And I said, what, 500 years of colonization, post-colonialism. You guys with me? You guys tired? We just started. They're a little bit tired. How about this idea? Better? They're a little bit tired. 400, so 1619, what happened in 1619? Raise your hand if you've heard of this year as being something significant. Who's heard of 1619? It's a year in the calendar. The Gregorian, not the Hijri, Gregorian calendar. You've heard of 16? Wow, when you guys go to UT, it's good. It means I'm not like, obviously I don't have a PhD or not like expert in any of the topics I bring up. I just know a little bit about them and I know that they're important because it inspires me, so I want to inspire others. It's good. If you haven't heard of it, then at least that means you'll learn something today. I thought at least a few of you would. Only one person? 1619, two people? 16, okay, tell us. Who said me? Someone raised their hand, right? 1619? Oh, who said they heard of it? Yeah, do you remember what it was or no?
I don't remember it specifically. I just knew that it had something to do with something about the colonies, something like.
That's correct. Good. Mayflower? It's close. I don't think the Mayflower, I can Google, I don't know what year it was. I don't know if it's 1619, but that's definitely, you're very close. I mean, you basically got it. Anyone else want to add, or should we just say 1619, the first recorded group of people, we have the list of names, etc. Our records show the first group of people arrived in what is now Virginia, is what is now America. It's a ship that arrived, and had in it people that were enslaved from Northwest Africa. So Mayflower is close. I don't know if that was the Mayflower, but Mayflower was probably earlier because, no, Mayflower was 1400s, right? Christopher Columbus, 1400s. He came up with the idea, and then they brought people, they slaughtered Native Americans, brought people from Africa, etc. So that's 1400s and 1600s, but it's connected, for sure. Just FYI, a quick tangent, but I know that in UT, you guys probably know this, it's kind of part of the culture in Austin and so on. To like talk about Native American Day and Columbus Day, etc. But Christopher Columbus, not only, it's the lie of him discovering America versus this is not India, right? These are Native Americans living here. How can you discover a country full of people? There's people here. And he represented European, hegemony and imperialism and all that. But not only that whole nonsense, and the fact that he didn't even know where he was and where he discovered, etc. Besides that, he came up with the idea of like slaughtering the Native Americans, and he came up with the idea of enslaving Africans. He came up with that, but obviously happened after his death. He came up with all that. So this guy is only Allah knows, but probably deep in the hellfire. 1619, 900,000 out of the 12.5 million Africans taken to the Americas, that's North and South America. Many of them went to Brazil and the Caribbean as well. Among them, 400,000 spent their lives enslaved in the United States. Tens of thousands were Muslim. It's about, scholars estimate, like a fourth or a third, definitely a good sizable fraction were Muslim. Those were four. So it makes sense because you look at Northwest Africa, plenty of Christians, many Muslims, and other religions, tribal religions. Muslims were acknowledged like no other community. Slaveholders, travelers, journalists, scholars, diplomats, writers, priests, missionaries, and even royalty recognized and talked about and were intrigued by the fact that there are Muslims among the slaves. Because they stand out. Kind of like how you guys stand out. Friday night, what are you guys doing here? They stand out. People are in the fields and they stop and they go pray. And they're facing east. These things make you stand out. So in every time and place Allah designed our deen, He'll protect you from evil, He'll protect you mentally, physically, spiritually. You'll stand out, you'll get people's attention, you'll have opportunities. Allah knows what He's doing. So this is the big picture. They stood out. Founders of Georgia, founder of Georgia, James Oglethorpe. President Thomas Jefferson, John Quincy Adams. Secretary of State, Henry Clay. Author of the U.S. National Anthem, Francis Scott Key. And many other people wrote about and spoke about the fact that there were Muslims among the slaves, and they were intrigued by this, they wrote about this, they were intrigued. Okay, a couple of names, 3 names. Ayuba Suleiman Diallo. Who's heard the name? Diallo? 1701, 1773. So the US is not the US yet, right? It's not 1776, this is in the colonies. Who said colonies earlier? We're in the colonies. This was a Fulani prince from West Africa. His memoirs were published. People were shocked by his language skills. He learned English really quickly. He already knows Arabic and maybe other languages. He's knowledgeable in the deen. They were shocked by his language skills, by his intellect. They were so shocked that they took him around to like show people like this guy, like slave owner could barely read and write, and this is a person who's a slave who could know all these languages, can write. It's fascinating for them. They took him around. He even met British royalty and dukes and I don't know if this is how you make the word plural, but duchesses. I don't know, but you know the dukes and duchesses, etc. Basically European elites. He copied the Quran 3 times from memory. Copied the Quran 3 times from memory. They tried to convert him to Christianity, and he used to debate with them very nicely, politely, gently, with a big smile. He'd debate them, and this is like priests and rabbis and preachers and missionaries and royalty. He would debate with them, and they were stumped. He would say things like, "Okay, open up your Bible. You want to open it up in Arabic, English, etc. Find me where does it talk about the Trinity?" And they're stumped. He already read the Bible in Arabic and English and stuff, and he knows the Quran. He knows it by memory. So he used to debate with them also about the fact that they have pictures of like saints and all that. He's like, "Yo, this is not what Jesus taught," and so on and so forth. Beautiful. There's obviously way more detail. I encourage you to Google it. If you're interested in these topics, there's a lot to Google. There are books on these topics. There's great articles. But Diallo, Suleiman Diallo. Muslim Muhammad Yaro Mahmoud. Muhammad Yaro. 1736 to 1823. It's a little bit later on. So his life, he existed when America was and wasn't a country. Was formerly enslaved African entrepreneur and property owner in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. Educated Fulani Muslim. He gained his freedom in 1796 after 44 years as a slave. Is that all right, guys? Come closer. We don't have a microphone, so come closer. How's the audio? Does my voice carry or? It's good. Okay. He was enslaved and taken to Annapolis, Maryland, from Guinea in 1752. There's so much detail about like him, and the details actually matter, and they're all impressive. But a couple of things. He became a jack of all trades. He worked as a brick maker, charcoal burner, basket weaver, cart driver, a bunch of other things. He made money, earned his own freedom. He bought his own freedom, purchased his own land, bought his own house, and basically eventually, invested in things. He died as a wealthy. For that time, a few $100 was like a lot. He died wealthy and independent and free. SubhanAllah. Today we're college students, or a lot of us are college students, and they're like, I have student debt, and I'm broke. Am I ever gonna get that job and then be financially independent? And you might watch Instagram people talk about they're flying around the world on private jets and they have nice cars and nice houses. You're like, I want to be financially independent. But and I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not easy these days. That it's not hard these days to be financially independent. It is. The system is all. We'll talk about Malcolm X, but he said economic exploitation, social degradation, and political oppression. And this hasn't changed that much. As in, these things are reality of the American empire. But anyways, so it's definitely tough today to be financially independent. You have a bunch of different forces that want you to be enslaved. Being in debt is enslaved. It's a type of slavery, modern day slavery. But there are paths to be financially independent. But imagine at that time, how many people anyways, I think you guys get the point. If everyone around you is enslaved, your people are enslaved, to even think about I want to be free and then to make it and it's unbelievable stuff. Real life superheroes. I think you guys would agree. Umar ibn Sa'id, 1770 to 1864, a little bit further along. Basically, he lived his whole life where America is a country, but America was independent in 1776, so he was born 1770 to 1864. But he lived all his life basically. America is a country, it's not the colonies, it's a free independent country, but him and his people are enslaved. Are you guys with me? Also, Fula Islamic scholar, enslaved, transported to the United States, 1807. He was a slave for the rest of his life. Enslaved, shouldn't say a slave. Doesn't fully define you or identify you. It's a temporary and it's a label given to you, but he was enslaved. Born to a wealthy family back in Africa. This stuff is mind-blowing. He studied mathematics, astronomy, business, and theology. So these people that were quote-unquote slave owners and so on, because you can't really own a person, but they couldn't read and write, some of them. They're not saying the most educated or the most intelligent and so on. So these people were more intelligent than their quote-unquote owners, which is interesting. 1776. What happened in 1776? Who was there at the khutbah today? Who dumped Britain's tea in the ocean, or in the harbor, Boston Harbor, because of no taxation for the anyways, that's the secondary point. But Around that time, the founding fathers come together to discuss what is this country going to look like. Right? They fought the British, it's our own country, etc. We want freedom, independence. They discuss. One of the things they discuss is the First Amendment. Who knows the First Amendment? You don't have to know word for word. But I want you to know that it's 5 things. Even in your own words, you should know what the First Amendment of the Constitution. And it's very relevant to all of us. 5 things, like 5 clauses, 5 pieces that make up the First Amendment. What are they? In your own words, though, what are they? Like, you can, speech, I heard speech, press, assembly. Cool, that's 3 out of 5.
Religion?
Protest.
It's a start with an R.
Resist.
No. Like it's cool. But it's a type of religion. You find, it's not the same word. Not reform, it's to petition the government, so it doesn't start with R, my bad. Someone can Google it, the exact wording. But here, I'll say, you'll never forget it after this if I explain it this way. You can start your own religion, or, obviously promote your religion. If, we're gonna talk about it in a second, but Islam is going to be revived in the 20th century in America. But even if they had created their own religion, which the Nation of Islam in a sense was new, but either way, the government doesn't care. You can have whatever religion, right? So your religion, you can start your own religion, or proclaim that I'm of a certain religion. Any religion. Literally in America, it's legal to worship the devil, so worshiping Allah is easy, so you shouldn't be freaking out about being Muslim. Start whatever religion, speak about it, your opinions, my religious views, my political views to anybody, everybody, it's your free speech. As long as you're not encouraging violence, but you're saying this is what I believe. Bring people to that, speak to the media, and then petition the government. Cool? Yeah, that, you got it, right? Now you'll never forget it, inshallah. So your religion, bring people to that, call people to that, tell people about it, speak to the media, speak to the government, and say we want to change the laws, etc. in America. And, yeah. Second Amendment is the right to defend yourself. And the Nation of Islam, we'll get to it in a second. The Nation of Islam is as American as can be. Is one way to look at it. Okay, 1776, but here's an interesting thing. So they're discussing this, okay? This is before the Nation of Islam. 1776, the founding fathers are discussing these things. What does it mean, freedom of religion? Because they were mostly what? Specifically? Protestants, and a lot of them, not all of them. Jefferson was a little bit less, quote-unquote, religious than the rest, or had different, his theology is a little bit different. It's kind of more closer to Islam, but the rest of them, definitely religion is important to them and part of their identity. They left Europe because of the Catholic Church, so for them religion is important. So they're dividing this country, but they didn't want it to be just a Protestant. They didn't want to redo they don't want to push that same narrative basically, or have that same thing like, they don't want someone to basically revolt against them because of freedom, because of religion. So they're like, fine, every religion. But this is how the discussion went. They said Catholics too, and then they agreed. They debate. 55 men, right? They represent everybody supposedly. They had slaves and all that. 55 men. They were like, even Catholics, and then they kind of, all right, fine, okay, even Catholics, because those are the enemy, right? The Protestants and Catholics, they fought for years. Interesting tangent, right? Sunnis and Shiites don't have a history in Islam, like 1400 years of fighting each other in bloodshed. In fact, plenty of them intermarried, they live in the same countries, Syria, Iraq, Iran. These countries have people of all different religions, even non-Muslims, Christians, Jews, etc. But they do have a history of bloodshed, right, in Europe, so not the same. But Protestants, Catholics, but yeah, as they said, even Catholics, fine, even Catholics, right? Then they were like, even Jews, and I was like, because throughout European history, it was nasty. They didn't trust the Jews, they didn't like them, and they tortured and abused them. It's a fact of European history, right? The Muslim world was different. The Muslim world took in Jews from Europe, so. Yeah, these are tangents, but they're also all related to the big picture. But anyways, even Jews, like fine, even Jews. Then they said, even Muslims, they use the term Mohammedans, Turks, etc. Muslims. Even Muslims, that was not an internal, and like the Protestant Catholics is like, they're our cousins, we don't like them. Like they're also Christian, but like they have a different view of Jesus, we can't stand them. In fact, we fight them. The Jews are like, they're not, they killed Jesus, right? They killed our God, they killed our son. Think from their point of view, right? It's completely unacceptable. And we don't like them for centuries, and now we're in America, fine. Muslims is what? Muslims is like our whole civilization, which includes Catholics and Jews, Europe, Christendom, whatever you call that whole, that's the other civilization. And from their point of view, we're at war with them. Now Muslims at every point, or all the, obviously Muslim history, I'm not gonna say it's all beautiful and nobody was ever did anything wrong. It's billions of Muslims. For the most part, any Muslim leader that's following the Sunnah of the Prophet and the companions, anytime there's an opportunity for peace, you take peace. It's also in the Quran, you take peace. If they're going to send an army and they're going to kill you, and you have to defend yourself, you have to fight, of course you do. That's fine. But anyways, I got another tangent, but it's the big picture. So that's the other civilization. From their point of view, we got to fight them, they're going to kill, they're against Jesus, they're preaching, they follow this Muhammad, that's how they see it. And Muhammad came after Isa, so they see that as a threat to their religion. Fine, that's how they see it. For us, we love everybody, we want to do business with everyone. We want to have places of worship, they're protected if they're under the Muslims. We want court systems for the Jews and Christians and Muslim courts. Under the Islamic umbrella, everyone can have their courts. We can agree, we can debate and discuss. We don't need to have any bloodshed. If you're going to come to attack me and my family, we can defend ourselves. Talk about Malcolm X and how we brought that to the modern life. But that's, from their point of view, it's the other empire, the other civilization, their enemy, the external threat, yeah? So they're like, even Muslims, remember where the founding fathers, am I going too fast? Founding fathers, they're in a room, they're trying to decide, they're going to design the whole country forever. Even Muslims, what was the conclusion? Fine, even Muslims. And that meant everybody. When they, in that room, they understood, you have to put yourself in their point of view, the way they see the world. When they said even Muslims, it meant everybody can be having a religion. They worship the devil, they worship, they're Buddhist, Hindu, Zoroastrian, Taoist, Jainist, they don't care. even Muslims, that means everybody can be here. And even Thomas Jefferson, who's the quote-unquote hippie liberal of that group, for us, he'd be very conservative for America today, but from that point of view, like if you go back, if you want to trace conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican in America, you could trace it all the way back to Europe. Not cleanly, but like you can, there's like Quincy, John Adams, and Washington, etc., quote-unquote Republican, conservative. In a sense, I mean, these things are not clean, but Thomas Jefferson, like more like liberal, Democrat, etc. In a sense, they all had slaves, by the FYI. Which also today, the Democrats and Republicans at the top, they're all rich, white, landowning. Anyways, yeah, you get the point. You guys go to UT. These things I don't expect you to know. I want to trace the Islamic history, though, or the Muslim history. So, lost my train of thought. Where were we? Thomas Jefferson. Yeah, Thomas Jefferson writes. This time when they debated it, Muslims, yes, everybody, freedom of speech, First Amendment, everyone can be here. Thomas Jefferson writes, one day a Muslim can be president. Like according to on paper. Is it popular? You have to get the votes and you have to be popular enough and no one assassinates you. A lot of ifs. You have to have enough money to travel around the country. It's expensive. But they wrote on paper that this is the freedom. We want it to be equal. Like president is of the citizens. Anyone can be a citizen. You can be a Muslim president. And he wrote that and thinking that I don't know if he thought it could happen. I don't know, to be honest. But he said it can happen. So legally it can happen on paper. And inshallah it will happen. Interesting fact, there's a really good book called Thomas Jefferson's Quran. I'm sure at least some of you have heard of it. It's written by a professor at UT, Denise Spielberg. I've spoken about this around the world, but I'm at UT now, so Professor Denise Spielberg. Thomas Jefferson's Quran. It's about the fact that Thomas Jefferson had an English copy of the Quran in his library, and this guy was very impressive. This guy read on all religions, philosophies. He had a whole library that became the beginning of the Library of Congress, which may be the most impressive library in the world today, or one of the top libraries. His became like he donated it after he died. It became a part of the Library of Congress, at the beginning of it. And he has in there an English copy of the Quran, and we know for a fact that he read it and understood it or tried to study it because it's annotated and commented on all throughout. How many of you guys write notes on when you read the Quran? He read the whole Quran, has notes on the whole thing. Thomas Jefferson. Anyways, fast forward a little bit, 1776, and founding fathers are saying, so Islam has been there since before America was America. They literally built up the country. I didn't go into every detail, but you get the point. A third or a fourth of those who were enslaved were Muslim. They literally built the whole country, right? The economy, why is America one of the most, if not the most powerful economy in the world? One of the most. Because for hundreds of years now we built up all these industries, but it started with slave labor. It's easier than to make a lot of money if you're not paying them anything. Think about it. China's trying to do the same thing with the Uyghur Muslims in China. You have 2 to 3 million people in internment camps, and they're working for what companies? The ones we all love. Nike and Adidas and Google this, put 83 companies, Uyghur, China, etc. It'll come up on Google. 83 list. You'll be shocked that it's some of our favorite brands. If you go into the mall and you look around those names, pretty much that's the same list. It's one of the reasons why they're super successful. If you pay your employee, if you pay them $0, it's not that impressive. If you're making a shoe and like the rubber is stolen from Africa and the slave labor is people that are internment camp, like it's not impressive that you make $100 out of a $100 shoe. You guys get the point. Alhamdulillah. 1790s, okay, I'm mostly talking about America, Muslims, the history of Muslims in America, but I want to show you a few things about around the world, show you a little bit of context. 1790s, so around this time, Sheikh Abdullah Qalbi, I'd never heard this before, so I like to research this stuff, of Indonesia. His name is aka Tuan Guru, I don't know how to pronounce it right, Indonesian. He wrote the entire Quran from memory while imprisoned in South Africa in the 1790s. And he's the founder of the first masjid and madrasa in Cape Town, South Africa. South Africa is people of all different tribes and nations that are African and different groups in India and other parts more recently, but it's different African tribes and so on. Europeans come from Netherlands and from Britain, etc. And they're like surprised that people want to have their independence and don't want to be under them. Like, dude, it's like you're in a whole other continent, it's not your continent. Interesting. If you guys are interested in watching movies on some of these things, because reading books is better, but like there are movies that are very powerful that really will, in a couple of hours, get a good idea of like what's going on. There's a number of good movies on Nelson Mandela in South Africa. Long Walk to Freedom, Invictus. I think they're generally good. If there's a scene, forgive me, definitely skip over it. But for the most part, they're generally clean movies. They're not really. They're mostly about activism and politics. 1790 South Africa. Okay, going to also Africa, but from South Africa going to North Africa, and we'll come back to the US. Umar Mukhtar. Raise your hand if you heard the name Umar Mukhtar. Mukhtar means like chosen, like the mayor of a city, the chosen one, etc. You guys have heard it? Okay, more than. But that's not a lot. I mean, I thought like maybe 50%. No? Umar Mukhtar. What country? What modern day country? Libya. Tell me a little bit about him. Someone raise their hand. Tell me a little bit, like a sentence. Give me a sentence.
He basically resisted against the
Louder so they can hear you. So,
he resisted against the Italian occupation.
So the Italians, the French, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the British, they're colonizing Latin America, Africa, Asia, the Indian subcontinent, America, the Middle East, sorry. A good chunk, if not majority of the world was colonized by one of these European countries, right? So this is specifically the Italians, and it's really right there. Like Libya is like just across the Atlantic, across the Mediterranean. So they're in there. And they have tanks, and they're in the desert area. Libya, the Libyans have the horses, and these have tanks. Another excellent movie. It's called Light in the Desert. I highly encourage you to watch that. But 1858, 1931. We're getting closer to now. Lion of the Desert. It's a great movie. He was an imam and a leader of the native resistance in what's modern day Libya, East Libya. And it was called the Senusids. I don't know how to pronounce it. Senusids. Who's from Libya or Morocco or Algeria, North Africa? How do you say it? Senusi? How do you say it? Senusid? Senusi. Thank you, I appreciate you. Because I've written it down, I've never said it out loud. Senusi, okay? Yeah, against the Italians. The Italians were trying to be like the Roman Empire at that time. Anyways, yeah. He leads the Arabic and Islamic revolution against the resistance for years, like 20-something years. He's in the desert. They got horses. They sometimes pick up guns if you fight people and take their guns. And then they have tanks, and they're that warfare. When you're in the desert, you hide, you come out, you fight. They're bringing tanks to kill people. They take over land. For 20-something years, eventually they captured and killed them. There's a lot of lessons in just his story, but we're trying to focus on us today. But something he said that I think is absolutely relevant to us today. Students, university students, even if you're in high school or masters and so on. But if you're in America, Britain, Australia, Canada, these countries today in our times, I think it's especially relevant from the fact that he resisted and his codes and teachings. Well, there's a lot of them actually. There's at least two that I love. They said, like, dude, you're like riding horses in the desert and they're dropping bombs from the planes. Aren't you afraid? He said, those planes of theirs, are they above or below Allah's arsh? Are they above or below Allah's throne? He said, below. He said, Allah's above the throne. I don't care about whatever is below the throne. Wow, that kind of confidence. Second one, which is super relevant to us. They said they would capture it. So it's an ongoing 20-something years of them fighting to try to take over that land, right? They would capture some of they would capture some of them in battle. They would capture some of them, and prisoners of war. One time it spread, and they realized that the Muslims that were the Libyans that were captured by the enemy, some of them were tortured and abused, etc. And then news got to them. So some of his followers got to him. Was like, yo, you're treating them so good. You're giving them food and water, making sure they're okay, and like, are you good? And what's going on? It's like, bro, you're treating these guys are the ones who are trying to kill you. They don't care about you at all. It's like they're torturing our people. You're treating them well. He said, they're not our teachers. Remember this. If you take away one thing from today, they're not our teachers. It's like they're torturing our people, so let's do the same thing. No, it's not. We don't do it. They're not our teachers. You guys understand the reference? So I have to explain it in detail. Am I telling you not to be a student at a university where the teachers are not Muslim? No, not necessarily. You learn math and science and chemistry and a lot of other subjects, even history and sociology and anthropology. But maybe be critical in what you're learning. The person is Muslim and you're not Muslim, or vice versa. You have a different worldview. You think that doesn't affect any of the subjects you're taking? You know, math and science, even science, but math is math for the most part. But if you're studying history, anthropology, psychology, sociology, obviously if you're studying religion, you're studying politics, guys, it's okay to agree to disagree with your professors, and you'll agree with them on some things and disagree. Don't feel bad if you disagree. Even if they're more knowledgeable, well, they will be more knowledgeable than you. If they're 40, 50, 60, and you're 20-something, they'll definitely know more things than you. Doesn't mean that everything they know is correct, or that you can't be right, they can be wrong. You can't be. You can be politely, firmly, even correct them sometimes and point it out and raise your hand, especially in classroom discussions. Some teachers will reward you for that, some will punish you for that, in my experience. I've been doing this for years. They'll reward you, some will punish you, but it's okay. But you don't have to do it every time. Sometimes I know for a fact I got a C or a B that I know I didn't deserve. But I've done that again, I don't know. But I was the guy who spoke up almost every time in class. You don't have to do it every time, but every once in a while do it. Life's too short not to. But they don't know everything. They're not our teachers, so this is a personal experience. I was in high school. I don't know if this happened in college, but definitely I remember in high school. A teacher that actually really liked me. And I was doing good in school. I was student of the year at my school, one of the best high schools in the world, right? Gets you into the top schools. My friends went to like Ivy Leagues, etc. But and I was student of the year, I did well. This teacher really liked me. They wanted to go above and beyond. They're teaching me math, English, history, but they cared about me. So they and others. They said, Abdullah, you don't have a girlfriend? Like, there's a lot of good, like, you're good, like, your subjects are all good, your grades are good, you're playing on the sports teams, and you're leading like the Habitat for Humanity and the president, like you're leading the organization, like well-balanced person, student of the year. Like, why don't you have a girlfriend? Are they trying to give you good advice or bad advice? Depends. Or they were trying to give me good advice, but they gave me bad advice. Objectively bad advice because Allah decides. They're not our teachers. You guys get the reference? That's what I mean by they're not our teachers. A moral point of view, you're going to learn morals from a non-Muslim? Not that every non-Muslim is immoral and every Muslim is moral. You guys know that's not the case. But where we're going to get objective morality from, we get it from the Quran and Sunnah, not get it from anybody else. So I love that quote from them. They're not our teachers. Right now what's going on in Palestine and so on, the way they treat people that they capture, the way they treat babies, the way they treat, are we going to respond the same way? We're not going to. They're not our teachers. Okay, Elijah Muhammad, going back to America, okay? 1897, 1975. We're getting much closer to home. In 1934, Elijah Muhammad led the Nation of Islam. Raise your hand if you've heard of Elijah Muhammad or the Nation of Islam. Should be everybody. Not everybody? Ooh, not everyone. It should be unanimous. Should be everybody, but that's okay. At least we're here to learn. It's an organization for African Americans. And it's our religion, our schools, our businesses, our community, our own. You don't need no white politician to tell us how we should or shouldn't live our lives. We don't need no government laws to tell us how we should or shouldn't decide our morals. We don't need to go to a church. We're also not going to be atheists and secular. We're not going to drink and party and all that's going to hurt us. Those are poisons. They want us to be addicted and weak and down. We're going to start our own businesses. We're going to have our own economic strength. We don't need no one else's money. We don't need no handouts. We don't need anyone to tell us. If someone gives you money, they can tell you what to do. And we're not going to go to their church because they're telling us this white man is Jesus. We know this is a bunch of nonsense. Those who were enslaved us. Okay, I'm obviously speaking in the third person, right? This is not me. My ancestors were not enslaved. I go back to Palestine. I'm not white or black, but your ancestors enslaved our ancestors, and you're telling us about this white man who is Jesus and God and etc. and God's image, and it's a bunch of nonsense you're preaching to us just to keep us below you, to keep us enslaved, and you're quoting from the Bible. We're not going to follow this. We're also not atheists, etc. We're Muslim. We're a third space, which is very relevant today. I think one of my main messages, inshallah, to the MSAs and Masajid and the Muslim community in America and Australia, Canada, UK, etc. Is that we don't need to be a Democrat, Republican, or conservative, liberal, or this party, that party. You don't have to be. I'm not saying you have to vote. I vote all the time. You try your best to vote. But we don't have to put yourself mentally in your heart and mind. You don't have to put yourself in one of these boxes and see yourself as I'm a liberal or conservative or something. In fact, you shouldn't. In fact, if you understand Islam correctly, you know that it doesn't cleanly fit in either box. We agree and disagree on both sides. Conservatives don't say everything wrong. I know you guys are. You don't freak out. Okay, they're not wrong about everything, and they're definitely not right about everything. But the left is not right about everything, and they're also not wrong about everything. If I was going to create a party right now, and just with slogans, because it's kind of how you do it, like you want votes from millions and millions of people, you got to dumb things out. You can't give it PhD level. You break it down. It is what it is. Experts have written that U.S. Congress and Senate, they speak at like a middle school level. I went to a Trump rally. 4 hours I sat there. It was at an elementary school level. Because in fact, I went there. I'm not even saying not saying anything bad about it. I'm saying it was an elementary school level discussion. He literally went. I know it's a tangent. You guys want to hear this or? It's kind of a tangent. Yes. How many of you guys have been to a Trump rally? That's what I want. Yeah. That's why I want to share this. I went because I don't want to just hear from left-wing media about Trump. I want to hear from him and a number of other speakers. This is 4 hours. I didn't think it was going to be that long. This is in Houston, the Toyota Center, where Hakeem Olajuwon used to won the championships, etc. So yeah, it was like elementary school level. He would he would go, Democrats, and it's 40,000 people. It was filled. The stadium was filled. And they're all yelling at the top of their lungs for 4 hours. He would say Democrats, and everyone would go, what? Woo. And he would say Republicans, and they would all go, yeah. And then he would say Beto. Who remembers Beto? Beto running against Cruz. That was the context. That rally that I went to was him coming down to Texas to say, vote for my buddies, Cruz versus Beto. He said Cruz, and everyone went, yeah. And then he said Beto. Woo. He said media. What word does he use for media? News. Yeah, news. They were right there in front of him, like all the cameras are right there, like in front of the stage, right? News, and everyone goes. Four hours. This is America. But he's a genius, though, because he got 40,000 people to yell. Can I right now give a speech to that 40,000 people that would all like yell and scream? I don't know if I could. I've been public speaking since middle school. I started public speaking in middle school here in Austin. I was at El Peace Academy, so it's been like 15 years. But I don't know if I can do what he did. Like, that's impressive. He's able to, millions and millions of Americans love him, would die for him. And obviously millions hate his guts. He has very, very low approval ratings, but we'll see 2024 what happens, inshallah. Going back, our own places of worship, they call them temples, I'm not call them, but anyways, yeah, our own religion, our own schools, our own business, our own, can you tell me, I want right now to hear you, raise your hand if you're part of the Nation of Islam. I'm not, I'm going to assume nobody, maybe one, who's part of the Nation of Islam, cool, they're our brothers, yeah? Tell me this, can you tell me objectively why it's, if you were at that time, if you're in this is 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, etc. Any of your, okay, they can take a step back, any of your parents came to America in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s? There were Muslims here, they were from Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, I don't know about Pakistan, India, maybe a few, I doubt it, like they didn't really start coming until the 60s. Where else? Turkey, I don't know, like, basically parts of the Ottoman Empire. The Sham area, I'm trying to think where else in the world. But anyway, there's some Muslims here, there's not that many. There are some messages from like 1800s and 1900s, but it's very few. But let's say no one was here from our, right, era, Pakistani, etc. Some of us are African, some are Indonesian, Malaysian. Let's say none of us were here. If you were there, you're African American, and you grew up, let's say, going to church, Southern Baptist, etc. And this guy was saying, our own religion, our own schools, tell me how that's wrong, or why it was wrong to follow them, or why it's not understandable that you would follow them, or that was the right way to go. You can be atheist and basically go to a club and party and do all the sins, and be like, forget about God, forget about Jesus, forget about etc. Or you're gonna go to church and worship Jesus, or you're gonna join this group that says we're Muslim and we're gonna do our own thing. You guys get it? Do we agree with them on everything? No, we don't. There are some theological issues. One of my many mentors and teachers, and Allah bless me with a lot of them, I like to learn from people that are from all over different parts of the world. There's a strength and benefit of having teachers and mentors from different parts of the world. If, like me, most of your schooling has been from white liberal teachers, nothing wrong with white liberals. And I think a lot of them, like I said, like the example I gave earlier, they cared about me, want to give me good advice. But if all your teachers are white liberal, for example, or even if all of them are, let's say, Pakistani Muslim, you're going to miss out. Because there's a reason Allah created us of different nations and tribes and cultures. You can learn a lot. But anyways, among my teachers and mentors in Houston is the spokesman for Nation of Islam Houston. Today, like right now, Nation of Islam still exists. I know that in our communities like Arab, Pakistani, etc., a lot of us, whenever we mention the Nation of Islam, we're like, nah, well, it's not true Islam. Okay, relax, bro. Understand the history, understand the context, and that's true that we have theological differences, but understand the whole big picture and understand what's going on. They are, in my humble view of like my research over my lifetime, the most successful movement in modern times. In terms of, not that everything they did was correct, no group does everything correct, but, and definitely theologically there's many other movements that are more closer to the truth, right? But in terms of how few and how scarce the resources are, and how big the impact is, that's one way to judge the success of a movement. They're not even close. Who's even number two? I don't even know. Most successful movement in modern times. Our independence, do for self, our own place of worship, our own schools, etc. Okay, it's a movement. So Elijah Muhammad is the founder, but it's just one person, and he produced a number of giants. And obviously, it's 1 million to 2 million people. And today, there's still a good number, but the majority have left it. We'll get to that in a second. Among the biggest names to come out of the nation of Islam, this is the 20th century. Those who were enslaved, going back, right? Those who were forced into slavery brought to America, a fraction of them, a third, a fourth, we don't know. A lot of them were Muslim. But their religion was systematically fought against. You can't read, you can't gather. I'm going back because I kind of missed this, I should have. You can't read, you can't gather, you can't really talk to your kids in your own language, you can't pray, you can't, etc. How's religion going to continue? So generations, they systematically fought against religion. This is America. America's about building up your businesses. It doesn't matter if it's tobacco, it's disgusting and poisoning the rest of the world. It doesn't matter if it's slavery, like think about it, it was tobacco plant, you're poisoning the world, and you have slave labor to do it, and you're forcing them to shit like it's immoral on every level. Oh, and the land was stolen by the neighbor. This is America. But yeah, and then those who were enslaved, you fought them against in terms of religion, in terms of their language, in terms of their culture. So basically Islam kind of died out, so it was forced out, and then there's some people who were born from memory. Exceptions, but generally it was fought against. 20th century of a revival movement of Islam in America. Beautiful. Okay, now we're at like 50s, 60s, 70s, etc. Names, big names that came out of this movement, the Nation of Islam. It's 1 million, 2 million people. Some of those names are very, very famous. Give me some names that came out of the Nation of Islam. Malcolm X? May Allah have mercy on him. Who else? Farouk Khan? Not that I know of him. You mean Farrakhan? Yeah. Dude, is Farrakhan Farouk Khan? No. I have no idea. Could be, I don't know. Is it? Actually, that wouldn't be surprising. That makes sense. Farrakhan is Farouk Khan. I never heard that in my whole life, bro. Can someone Google that? That's curious. That's interesting. It's very possible. I'll tell you why it's very possible. No way, that's where Farrakhan, it makes sense because Farrakhan is not a common name in America, white, black, or Latino, like no one names Farrakhan. Also because the person who basically produced it is Elijah Muhammad. The person who taught him a little bit about Islam coming to America and take care of African Americans, etc., is someone who we believe their ancestry went back to India, so it's very Farouk Muhammad. So it's very possible that Farrakhan, I never realized his name was Farouk Muhammad. But yeah, Farrakhan is one of the big names, sure. Malcolm X, we're missing a couple others. There's 4 main people that Elijah Muhammad, this person who's very undervalued, to the best of our knowledge, and I've heard some people that know him and know his kids, etc. well, they said that before the end of his life, he repented for some of the sins he committed. We all commit sins. And, well, we'll get to it in a second, the way he raised his son was beautiful and was amazing and very Islamic. We'll talk about that. So it seems like indicated inshallah that he's under Allah's mercy, but definitely undervalued because objectively he's one of the most, if not the most successful person in the 20th century. He produced 4 big giants, and obviously millions of people were influenced by him. Still, I'm indirectly influenced by him, by my teachers and my teachers' teachers. 4 names. That's true. Louis Farrakhan wasn't really going to plan on talking about, but that's true. And he's still alive today. It's the Nation of Islam that continued, but the majority broke away from him. But Malcolm X, 2 other names, big names. Muhammad Ali, and one more, who's probably the least famous name of the 4, but huge. Muhammad Ali's mentor and teacher for decades of his life. Muhammad Ali lived till like a few years ago. It's 2016, may Allah mercy him, he passed away. At that point, he was 70, someone could go like 74, right? And he became Muslim at like 19, 20, 21, defeated somebody listened, became heavyweight champion. So he's on the scene, speaking around the world, the most famous guy on the planet, from like 20 years old to 70 years old, like 50 years. Some of them, who brought him to Islam, who brought Muhammad Ali to Islam, who was his big brother, like 15 years older than him, brought him from Christianity to Nation of Islam, and then brought him from Nation of Islam to Islam, like Orthodox, mainstream, global Islam. Who was his big brother who brought him to Islam? Malcolm X. Okay. And Elijah Muhammad is like the father figure, because these are a lot of people that are African American, like they're orphaned in a sense, even if they're not biological. Malcolm X is orphan, they killed his dad. But even if they didn't kill your dad, it's what if your dad is in prison, or if your dad is not mentally able to take care of you, etc., because of all the trauma that's going on. So a lot of people, this movement is basically quote unquote taking on orphans. Like Malcolm X's wife, orphan. He's orphan. Muhammad Ali's parents were alive, they're Christian, he converts. His adopted father is Elijah Muhammad, his big brother Malcolm X. You guys get it? Okay, and then one more person. Imam Wardi Muhammad, who, I just said it, sorry. You're going to say it? Proud of you, bro. Really, you're going to say that? That's what's up. Not a very well-known name, but listen. Wardi Muhammad, who's the biological, actual son of Elijah Muhammad. I'm going too fast, yeah? Let me slow down. I get excited about this stuff. Elijah Muhammad is older than these people, right? Malcolm X, his story. How much time do we have? Let's see how much of the story we'll go into, but I'm sure you guys know at least like a paragraph about him, if not like the whole book. I do encourage you guys to read the book, or at least watch the movie and skip over the dirty scenes, but the movie's really well done. It's based on the book. I'm being serious. I don't want the sins for that, but the movie's well done. Malcolm X brings his younger brother Muhammad Ali into Islam, who outlives him by decades because he gets assassinated. Muhammad Ali lives till like a few years ago. He does a lot around the world. Elijah Muhammad's actual biological son, or one of his sons, Imam Walid ibn Muhammad, when Elijah Muhammad dies in 1975, Walid ibn Muhammad becomes the leader of the majority of the nation of Islam that broke away and became, like many of us, Arab, Pakistan, Indian, mainstream Muslims, like the rest of Muslims around the world. If you're African American, it's different than being Nigerian, different than being Palestinian, there's different cultural differences. But the beliefs and the theology and the deen of it, so on, it's the same deen. So they're praying before they used to pray in the same way, 5 prayers a day. They established Jum'ah. Imam Walid ibn Muhammad did this. Established Jum'ah, taught them wudu and tahara, salah, tawheed. My dad was not actual prophet after Muhammad, there's no prophet after Muhammad, etc. etc. All the important beliefs, all the important practices, Hajj, Umrah, Zakah, so you guys get the point. All that with no internet, no social media. 1 million, 2 million people, after everything they've been through for 400 plus years. And now that his dad was the one who was telling them things about the nation of Islam, someone was correcting him, not correct. He's correcting his dad's view, saying, yeah, my dad said that, it's not completely correct. And yes, we gotta kind of transition another time. And you have to start, like, think about the trauma, think about the pain, and no internet, no social media. Raise your hand if you've ever taught someone how to make wudu or how to pray. I've done Sunday school, Saturday school, I have younger brothers. I've taught them how to make wudu. It takes like a while per kid, and then they're running, if they're young, they're running around, they like sit down and like, yo, the water, don't slip, don't fall. Imagine teaching 1 million to 2 million people how to pray and how to fast, no internet, no social media. And in that same time period, cops are attacking you in the streets, attacking your kids and attacking your wife, they let the dogs go and attack you. They shoot you with fire hoses if you're protesting. You're trying to go vote, and it's already illegal to go vote. You vote with MLK and Selma. Guys, another good movie, Selma. Watch that movie. They'll attack you in the streets, they'll beat you on the head with, like, all that's going on, lynching in the 20s and 30s, that's going on. And like, Elijah Muhammad is creating this movement, and then his son is taking them on to the next level. Real life superheroes, yes or no? Real life superheroes. No internet, no social media, creating a movement across the country, and then teaching everyone wudu and salah and tahara about Allah and the Quran and the Messenger. And they're like 1 million to 2 million people out of 100 million Americans. And you're saying, we're not Christian, and we're not, etc. We're not Democrat, we're not Republican, we're all group. You know how hard that is? Oof. How are we on time? Because there's so much detail, but I don't know how much detail to go into. I can go into the whole history of Malcolm, like the story of Malcolm X, but I don't have to. Or by 1975, Imam Walid ibn Muhammad comes in, and then for decades he is, after Malcolm X gets assassinated, and he becomes a leader, he is Muhammad Ali's main mentor and teacher for those decades. Muhammad Ali is speaking around the world, the most famous guy on the planet. Imam Walid ibn Muhammad, though, is soft-spoken. You can see him on YouTube. He dies in 2008, 2009. He's soft-spoken, calm, chill. He speaks very calm and slowly. He's very knowledgeable. His dad told him to go study Arabic and study Deen properly in Syria and so on. So he knows the Quran, Sunnah, he knows the Arabic, etc. He's teaching it, but Muhammad Ali is way more, more eloquent and more, bigger personality, more famous. So he's speaking, but he's his teacher and mentor. So they both had a role. So that's decades. And that brings us to big names that came out of this movement and came out of the Imam Muhammad community. More recently, people like Imam Samaj al-Hajj. Raise your hand if you don't know Samaj al-Hajj. So we can all shame you. No, I'm kidding. Almost every masjid in America now, he raised money for them. All the charities, all the causes, all the masajid, all the conferences. Imam Samaj al-Hajj is arguably, I think he is, the Imam of America, and he's still alive today. He's probably in the 70s. May Allah keep him steadfast, and think about 50 plus years of dedication to the community and so on. May Allah reward him for that tremendously, and we've all benefited a lot from him. Even if you've never heard the name, maybe a few of you, I hope everyone has, but if you've never heard the name, you definitely benefited from it directly. I'm sure at some point he's been to Oasis or UT. I'm sure he's actually, I've heard him speak right here in this room. 95%, yeah, 100% sure. Joe Bedford's there, he was there. Zala Billo, this was 2016, 17, Need Intensive. So he's been here for sure, he's been everywhere, mashallah. So yeah, he's still alive. But that's a continuation of that legacy. I noticed there's a number more things to say, and I want to open it up for Q&A. Inshallah, it'll be interesting, because definitely I left a lot of details. But I know that all the names I mentioned were males. We start off by saying the best people are the prophets. They're all males. There's a reason for that, that's fine. But after that, or in addition to that, there are at least 4, and there's many more, 4 names of females that we know from Allah and from His Messenger. That they're the highest level of Jannah, the best women to have ever lived, and they're role models for men and women from all times and places. Really quickly, the 4 greatest women to have ever lived. Quickly. 4 greatest women to have ever lived. Role models for men and women for all times and places. Go ahead. Okay, how about in chronological order? She's Aisha is actually not from the 4. She's from Ummahat al-Mu'minin. All the wives of the Prophet are the highest level of Jannah. So she's, top 10 plus 4, top 15. But she's not top 4. She's not top 4, which I don't decide. She's not top 4. Asking the wife Pharaoh chronologically is number 1. Ranking wise, Maryam is number 1, but chronologically she's number 2, Asya is number 1. They adopted the biological mother of Jesus, alayhi and the adopted mother of Moses, alayhi. That's how I remember it. 3, chronologically. Wow.
Sumayya?
Oh. So she's from the companions, and she's the first martyr of Islam. So she's up there. So let's say top 20. Allah decides, definitely top something, top 100, etc. But not top 50. That's top 4. She was born. You guys know how she was born? Abu Jahl is torturing and abusing her in front of her husband, in front of her son. At the end of it, how he finishes it up, whipping and beating and stretching and pulling it up. You see in the movie The Message. What does he do? The movie doesn't show it because it's disgusting. He takes a spear and he what? He stabs her where? Her private where? That was 6 of those. 6 sick people. Top 4. Queen of Sheba, since she's in the Quran and Allah praises her, that means she's got to be up there, but she's not in the 4. We said, you guys got to pay attention. We said Asya, Maryam, so the adopted mother of Moses. She goes up against the Pharaoh, the worst person in history. Top 2, Abu Jahl. Top 3, in the Quran, they're insulted the Christian. She said, I don't believe in you. She didn't have to do that. She said, I don't believe in you. You're not a real God. God is the one who sent Moses. She said that to her husband, who literally slaughters babies, just like Netanyahu. Slaughters babies. Right? Musa made it out, but he slaughters babies. She said that to him, and you would think maybe he slaughters babies by his own wife, you kind of let her go. No. They grabbed her, they tied her up, and put her, they're going to drop a boulder on her. That's how they give the death penalty. They're going to kill her. She prayed to Allah, I want a palace with you in Jannah. I don't want this. She was the queen of the whole, she's the wife of the Pharaoh. She could just stay quiet and live the life. She probably had like hundreds of people working for her, servants and slaves, living the life. Like a queen in our times, no queen in our times had the power she has. She's the wife of the Pharaoh. They have an army of people like enslaved under them. But she couldn't, she spoke out. They wanted to kill her. Before the boulder hit her, Allah took her soul and she was in the highest level of Jannah. So Maryam, Asya, chronologically it's Asya, Maryam. You guys said Khadija, and then Fatima, the daughter of Prophet. All other wives are up there, but Khadija's 50 was top 4, and Fatima, Aisha would be, let's say, top 10, top 15. So I realized that the names I all mentioned are all males, but at every stage of this, from the prophets, their wives and daughters and mothers, etc., for many of the prophets, and from these people we're talking about in terms of movements. Malcolm X, he talks about his wife and his sister. His sister sponsored his Hajj, and you know how important his Hajj is. It changes the course of his history, and changes the course of US history and world history. His sister sponsored that. His mother, of course, she lost her mental health because of all that happened to her husband, etc. Like that. She was, he basically grew up without her. And then his wife was his rock and his comfort and his support for, and gave him 6 daughters. One of them at least is speaking around the world about her father's legacy and so on. So women were there at every step and every stage. So I apologize I mentioned males' names, but the reality is that women absolutely have a place in the movement, in the current ongoing Islamic movement that we're part of in America and around the world. So it's not about men only, but these were names because like if you talk about a million people at one time in the movement, it's easier to talk about a few names, but it's not accurate to say that there are other people doing it big. There's just some people more famous than others. And each of them had women behind them, in front of them, on the side, supporting them, and other women that were leading in the movement. There's plenty of names. Google it, you'll find it. The nation decided a number of women that were like big influencers. The mothers of, listen to this quote, guys. The mother, I'm not saying that the only valuable woman is a mother, but the most valuable people on the planet are mothers. Okay? The mother is the first teacher of every scholar, and the first protector of every warrior. You could have made some noise, you could have been like, oh. It's good? Is it good or no? If it's not good, don't do that. If you don't like it, don't make noise. Well, I thought that was nice. You don't like it. You throw shade, eh? You talk back to the speaker, eh? That's cool. Y'all my brothers and sisters, it's cool. The mother is the first teacher. We talked about a list of people that were like leaders, fearless warriors, leaders. Right? Malcolm X assassinating the warrior, and then scholars. The mother is the first teacher of every scholar, and the first protector of every warrior. Okay, there's so much more I have here, but let's open it up to Q&A. Sister Hela, where's Hela?